In TBC, basically when you go to create a new project, it looks for a template that you can set up previously. So we have our own templates for survey solutions. We have ones where it has the ordnance survey coordinate system selected. And we have one where it's basically just a scale only job, but similar to the metric scale only one. And this could also include things like your coordinate system, some of your basically default settings, sheet settings and stuff like that can all be added in. So if you're looking to create your own template, if you just usually select a blank template to start with, or you can basically work from a previous one if you've selected that, if you've created one previously. And all we're looking to do is effectively add in the stuff we want to add into the project. The first thing you might want to change is if you tap on the grid at the bottom, it'll come up with your projects with your coordinate settings. So if we tap on here, we see our coordinate system. It's basically left as a scale only, scale factor 1. If we want to change that, then we can see things like recently used, or we can search by name, or we can go coordinate system and zone, and we can select things like United Kingdom Ordnance Survey. The latest one will be OSTM 15, and then we can basically apply that coordinate system to the project and set it up that way. Other things we might want to do would be perhaps in your options. So if you're working with point clouds, you might want to up the memory cache that it uses for processing. This is limited to basically half the size of your available RAM. So even though I've got 64 gig in here, if I type in 100, it will basically limit that back down to 32. The other thing you might want to change is the amount of points it uses in spatial algorithms. So if you're doing some sampling, so you want to sample your point cloud down, from basically a point every millimeter or less down to something like 5 millimeters, then it'll apply this algorithm based on a set number of points. It won't use every single point. So you want to kind of maximize that in terms of the area. So if you put in too many numbers, basically it'll default back to the previous setting. So basically, if we push this right up, we can see how many zeros if we effectively need to add in before it allows us to opt to change that. So I'll just cancel that back down. So we can change some of the settings in here. Actually, other things in here might be things like your file locations and things, where it looks up where it does the temporary processing. So you might want to change this. If you're doing a lot of processing, you obviously want to make sure that this has been done in a drive that has a good capacity for memory to allow that processing to happen. So you want to direct it to somewhere where you have the capacity to do that. You might also want to change things like your project templates folder. So when we create our template, this is basically where TBC will look when we start a new job. This is the location where it will look for our project templates. So maybe we want to store our project template somewhere else and then actually change the location, use a different location, or we're basically going to store them in here, and this is where it will look for our templates. So you can make some of the changes here. Other things in support, you might want to do a little bit of customization as well to some of your icons you have up here in terms of customizing the ribbons, default shortcuts, things like that. So if I go to customize ribbons, I can do perhaps my quick access toolbar, which I see up the top here, and I could start adding in some additional commands, basically for different views and things like that, kind of quick commands that I might use all the time. So under the views, we've got our view filter manager and properties. A lot of them are on there already. You can see I've added in things like zoom extents, and it's basically just across selecting it and tabbing it across, and then it'll appear in the other side, and then we can move them basically up and down as well in levels in terms of where we want to see them. You can also export these formats in case for whatever reason you come into a project and they're not there, or you want to use them on a different machine or device. You can export them and then import them back in basically and save them within Trimble Business Centre, so you maintain your usual settings. Again, for things like the ribbons here, we can customize these, and we can add in different commands into different modules basically. So things like data prep, we can select different ones and then add them in and they'll appear in here. So it's all customizable and then we can save that. So if I want to add in something like, for this one, it's going to be just a plain grid. And I'm going to add in a couple of things. So the first thing I want to add in to this one is basically my feature code library. So you might have a list of different types of feature code libraries. I'm just going to bring in this latest Survey Solutions one that we have. And that'll appear on my basically imported files. My feature library will be there with all my codes attached to it, and layers. If you had separate layers, again, this might be something you want to bring in. If it was coming out of AutoCAD, if it's a dot layer file, we can bring in a separate layers. However, usually, basically, these are found and imported. Your layer file would usually be imported into your feature library. So when you're creating your feature library, in the feature definition manager, this is where you would load in and select all your layers. And then when you export out of the feature definition manager, you just need to make sure when you export it out that you export it and include all layers and everything. So when we bring it in here, this will bring in basically all the appropriate layers and everything is included in our feature library. The other thing is would be your drawing templates, so your plan sheets. So this would be a VCL file, and again, we can basically drag and drop that in here, and this will import our sheet sets that we have, plan view. So once you've got everything selected, I also like to see this on the left hand side as well, Project Explorer and my View Filter Manager. Those are basically turned on at the top, and it's something I usually keep on as a default in terms of the way mine's is laid out. So once you're happy with that, basically it's a case of going in here and going to File, and then you have the option to basically save as template. So you have the option basically to give it a name. And then we can select it as we want if is the default template. So this would basically when you open the job, this would be the default one that would open first. You can also actually sign into your TID and apply it into and save it in a Connect project. And basically when we save this template, it'll then be stored in the location as per the file locations for the options. So this is where all your templates are basically stored. So you'll see here that basically it's stored it now as a VCT file. So this is your, and you'll see the other ones we had in there as well in terms of scale factor ones. So all these files are basically your template files. So you can keep a backup of that just in case you lose it. And if you can, you have some sort of installation problem with TBC as a backup, you can copy it back into this default folder for where it's looking for the information. And then basically from there, when you go into create any new project, then effectively your template will be there and available to select. You'll see here when we're creating a new project, it basically tells you with the template folder. So again, this is just pointing in the direction of these. And you can also, this one is obviously the default, so it's always going to be the one that's selected because it's a default. So this would be the one that would always be highlighted when in, or I can, if I create this as a default, then it's always highlighted basically just to go straight and create it from there. And we can also save it as read-only as well. So basically it won't be overwritten.